The Falcons have gained and lost a starter in free agency over the last 24 hours. Welcome on into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here breaking down both these pieces of news, starting with the addition, and it is safety Jordan Fuller, who comes over after one season with the Carolina Panthers. He was a sixth-round draft pick back in 2020 by the Rams via Ohio State, and with the Rams, he had a good connection with now Falcons head coach Raheem Morris. He started 34 games at safety for Morris. Remember, this was a Rams team that did not have a lot of draft capital. They made a ton of trades, and they went all in, and it worked out. They won the Super Bowl, but that meant they had to rely on a lot of day 3 draft picks, and Fuller's name was called upon, and I thought, remembering how he played back then, he did a pretty good / adequate job for what you expect out of a 6th-round draft pick who, as a rookie, started 12 games. Overall, with the Rams, he started 46 of 48 possible games. He's had some up and down years in his NFL career, mostly due to injuries. Last year, he played a little over half of the season, but prior to that, all 17 games in 2023. However, seesawing in 2022, just 3 games. Then in 2021, 16 games. So up, down, and if history repeats itself, which it often does, he should play 16 or 17 games this year. But I have him slotted in as a starter immediately, right alongside Jesse Bates. DeMarco Hellams, who has some experience but missed all of last year with an ankle injury. He's probably going to be that third safety off the bench. Right now, the Falcons have 4 safeties by my count. They are going to add another name. Could be in free agency, probably a UDFA at the bare minimum. Maybe one more. Could be in the draft at bare minimum and UDFA afterwards. Maybe one more in free agency, but probably not unless it's a very cheap 1-year contract, which I don't have the details on this one, but I don't expect it to be too much money. By the way, when I saw that they signed Jordan Fuller, I was like, oh, any relation to all the Fullers like Kendall and Kyle Fuller? Because that's an awesome lineage of family DBs. And no, not the case, different Fullers. However, I did not know this. He is the brother of Falcons 7th-round draft pick in 2016, Devin Fuller. So if you're like, I kind of recognize that name. He is a Falcon brother, so brother in arms. But we're going to talk about the departure in just a moment, but I do want to say thank you to everyone who has recently subscribed to the channel. We crossed 34,000 subscribers. Really appreciate those of you that hopped aboard. If you are looking for a Falcons channel that's going to break down every free agent signing, no matter how big or how small, plus all the draft picks coming up next month, make sure you click that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Now, speaking of departures, Justin Simmons, I don't believe is going to be returning with this Fuller signing. This, to me, closes that door. Not that that door really seemed ever too wide open, but you never quite know. I don't think Simmons was bad last year. He definitely fell below my expectations. I was super pumped up about this signing. He led the NFL in takeaways from interceptions, and I think just takeaways in general from 2016 to 2023, and joins Atlanta after a long time in Denver. Only puts together 2 interceptions, and that's not a tiny number, but it was, I think we can all agree, a tad underwhelming. He just didn't quite look like the perennial Pro Bowl safety he was with the Broncos. So Simmons, very unlikely to return now. I'll just say close to 0% chance with the Fuller signing. That'd be a little bit of an overkill at the safety position in free agency. But let's run through all of the signings Atlanta has made now up to this point, including some of the other deals like extending Jake Matthews. They signed Divine Diablo, who we'll talk about a little bit later on, to a $14 million contract. Mike Hughes re-signs. Leonard Floyd comes over from the Niners to help with the pass rush. Mike Ford comes back to Atlanta after some time in Cleveland. Taquan Graham is going to help replace Grady Jarrett. Kadarius Hodge on special teams. Brandon Parker and Storm Norton going to be your swing tackles and some depth at the offensive line. Then you've got Keith Taylor adding some depth at cornerback. Morgan Fox, a rotational piece on your defensive line. Kentavious Street also trying to help with the Grady Jarrett replacement. And you've got Jordan Fuller on a one-year contract, I believe. So don't get too attached to the contract details. This stuff can change, and it can be a little fluid. Let me see just live right now if we even have an actual figure. Probably not. I don't see one. No. But if it changes, just bear with me here. Now, some departures, and this is like the second half of the video. Drew Dalman, Grady Jarrett, Richie Grant, Eddie Goldman. This all happened in the first week of free agency. But one of the more under-the-radar losses was yesterday/today, over the last 24 hours, depending on when you heard about it. Nate Landman signed with the LA Rams. So as Atlanta gains a starter and Fuller, they lose a guy who was a decent starter for them, filling in for Troy Anderson on multiple occasions. A UDFA out of Colorado, started 23 games in his 3-year Falcon career. When they did not tender Landman or Alford, I thought that doesn't necessarily mean they're absolutely gone in free agency, but maybe they just want to give those guys an opportunity to test the market, see what they can get elsewhere, and if they can get more from the Falcons, adios. But if they can't, then Atlanta might be willing to bring them back. Turns out the Falcons just did not seem to have much interest in bringing back Landman, or it appears D. Alford, who's still a free agent as well. The Landman one, I could see being something we look back at and go, ooh, that stings a little bit, because when he was healthy on the field, he was really good. When he filled in for Troy Anderson for pretty much all of 2023, started 14 games, the guy had 3 forced fumbles, an interception, 2 sacks, 110 tackles, and 7 tackles for loss. Unfortunately, this past season, a groin, a calf injury from training camp lingered into the start of the season, caused him to miss a ton of time, and even when he came back, he did not look like he was running anywhere near 100%. So this one's a little bittersweet because, sure, you wanted to get faster at linebacker, and you do with Diablo. Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, Nate Landman. Anderson's got great athleticism, but Landman not the fastest guy in the world. But Diablo is going to come in and be able to provide more speed at that linebacker spot and go sideline to sideline. But I still feel like Landman was a good linebacker, and the Rams are getting a good player. And anytime your team loses a good player, that's not usually something to celebrate over. So with Fuller arriving, Landman's outbound to the West Coast, and those are the 2 notable transactions for the Falcons in the last 24 hours. So how would you grade the Falcons free agency so far? Incorporate the losses along with the additions. If I told you guys in February, hey, they're going to lose Drew Dalman and Grady Jarrett, but they're going to gain Leonard Floyd and Jordan Fuller and Divine Diablo, I don't think a lot of you look at me and go, that's a great plan, PD. I love that plan. I'm going to give the Falcons a C. And that might be generous, honestly. Not that I expected them to get an A. There was not a great opportunity to upgrade at pass rusher in free agency. Just wasn't a great market for that position this year. So poor timing for the Falcons, but I don't know if I look at this roster and go, yeah, it's better now. We still got the draft, and that can help a lot, but you lost Dalman and Jarrett. And those 2 players are better than any guys the Falcons signed outside of maybe Leonard Floyd. So at best, one cancels out with another, and you're still, who's better than Dalman that the Falcons signed? I'm not seeing anyone. One quick housekeeping note before we pretty much get on out of here. We're going to get another season of quarterback. If you remember, the Falcons were in the first season of quarterback. They've gone quarterback, wide receiver. They're going back to quarterback. And yours truly was in it for the Marcus Mariota segment. We got contacted by, I think it was Netflix, asking for permission for our voices to be in quarterback for the first season of it. As far as I know, my boss has not messaged me that they contacted us again. So I'm not going to lie, for my ego, it'd be pretty cool to be in it again because hearing your voice in a Netflix documentary, I'm not going to lie, it's a pretty cool feeling. But does not maybe appear that way. I would not be opposed, though, if they find some videos from like November or December where I am begging Atlanta to bench Kirk Cousins. That could be a fun addition to the show right there. So keep your eye on it, though. Atlanta back in the spotlight for quarterback season 2 coming out in July. Let's spin the wheel, pick a random commenter from yesterday's video to give 2 claps for. Mr. Barkus, spin that wheel. Who's it going to be? 2 claps going to, I think it's going to be Ray Leg 44. Yes. Ray Leg 44, thank you so much for your support and commenting on our content. 2 claps for you. 1, 2. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I already put out a video this morning, and then some news came out, so unfortunately that video gets cucked a little bit. But go watch that video after this one.